In the Tom Baker meeting room. This is the meeting for the city Board of City Commissioners. I don't believe there's a chaplain here tonight, so we will just go ahead and stand for pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Risch?
Here.
Commissioner Zenker?
Here.
Commissioner Connolly?
Here.
Mayor Schmitz?
Here.
Chair Cleary?
Here. And we're going to start with a proclamation for Boy Scout Troop 6. Whereas in January of 1917, the National Council of Boy Scouts of America granted a charter to the Boy Scout Troop 6 of Bismarck, North Dakota, and its sponsoring organization, First Presbyterian Church of Bismarck. And whereas Troop 6 has been continuously chartered and sponsored by First Presbyterian Church for these last 107 years, and whereas Troop 6 has been honored to have 85 young men earn their first rank of Eagle Scout in its history, including 5 Eagle Scouts that served in World War II and others who have served their community and nation. And therefore, be it resolved that I, Ann Cleary, on behalf of this commission, do hereby recognize Troop 6 Scouting America on its 108th anniversary. All right. First is public comment. This is restricted to items on the consent agenda or regular agenda, excluding any public hearing items. First call for public comment. Second call for public comment. Hearing none, we'll close public comment. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Zenker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. Okay, regular agenda item A, consider the request to receive update on the terminal area study. I believe Matthew? Or Greg? Yeah. Greg?
Hello, Commissioners. No, I'm just going to turn it over to Matt. Matt's been spearheading this terminal area study for the airport since its inception back in November of 23, and I'm going to let him do the introduction, and we'll hear from the consultant. All right?
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor online. For the record, I am Matthew Armenzi. I'm the Marketing Operations Manager for the airport. I am here this evening to introduce Jeff Ubel and his team, who will be providing a update on the terminal area study. But I just wanted to provide a brief background on the project before we have Jeff come up. So really, this project started in 2016 when we did the full master plan for the airport, which included looking at the entire airfield, facilities, and determining how that was going to grow. A piece of that was the terminal area. So in 2019, we approved the full master plan, and it was really a natural progression to go into the terminal area study because in 2019, our passenger boardings were doing fantastic and really dictated the need to look at a terminal expansion. So as we were getting into it, we ran into March of 2020, which was the pandemic, and we saw our numbers plummet. And we took a step back and just kind of looked at it. There was a lot of uncertainty there. We weren't sure what the numbers were going to do, how they were going to come back. We weren't sure what the long-term effects of the pandemic were going to be on aviation. So we put the terminal area study on the shelf. We took care of some other key projects at the airport and waited for the recovery. We started seeing that in 21, 22, and then in 23, we really saw the numbers jump up again and start dictating again, probably the need to start looking at a terminal expansion. So at the end of 2023, we came to the commission and requested approval to move forward with a terminal area study. The purpose of the study being to understand what the future passenger boardings are going to look like at the airport in 5, 10, 15 years. Understand what the needs are going to be during that time frame, put together some concepts, and then really truly understand what the operational and financial impacts of a terminal expansion are going to be to the city. So again, the commission approved that, and we got Jeff Ubel and his team under contract and got them going here at the beginning of the year. And they've been doing a lot of good work up to this point, and we are excited to share the first update here. And with that, I'll just say thank you for allowing us to give an update. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's unusual for me I always want to say good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I get some mayors here, right? Online, okay. So, as Matt mentioned, I'm going to go through very briefly. I certainly respect the fact that we're first on the agenda and you have a lot of public hearings to follow. So, although it appears that we have a lot of material to cover, we're going to go through it as efficiently as we can and allow you an opportunity to ask any questions or make any comments that you have. I do want to note that this is just an update at this point. We will be coming back in April to provide a formal presentation on the complete report. And so there will be aspects that you may have questions on that we may not have answers to because we haven't quite reached that point, but I'll make sure to point those out to you. Oh, it's up there? Okay. What's that? Yeah, I'll reserve that minute. Okay. So this is our agenda today. Like I said, it appears as if we have a lot of information to cover. We'll get through this relatively quickly. We want to give you a good perspective on where we are today. First, just so that you have a sense of the planning team that's involved in this, there's been a lot of folks that have contributed to this study to this point. Certainly, the airport and all of the airport staff have been had a huge influence on the study. We did, as a part of the process, create an airport advisory committee, which is made up of a group of folks throughout the community that have an interest in the development of the airport. And so there's 8 committee members that we'll also be meeting with tomorrow to continue the ongoing discussions. We've met with all of the airport stakeholders, and so these are the folks that interact with the airport on a daily basis, from the TSA to the concessionaires, the rental car companies, the airlines, ground support people, so a huge group of people there, and then myself and my staff, and then we have with us today our aviation planners from Mead and Hunt, who you'll hear from Justin Anderson a little bit here in a couple minutes on the airport forecasting. So there's been a very robust group that's led the planning effort. Our process is fairly well defined. It's actually identified in a FAA circular on airport planning, and so we want to make sure that everything we do in the planning process aligns with the FAA and the FAA's requirements. And so this process has been dictated essentially by them, and it's used on airports throughout the country. The first step that we went through is I looked at the existing conditions, and this is the physical conditions of the terminal and the study area that we looked at, which includes the land side aspects of the parking and the roadways leading up to the terminal. I'm not going to get into an exhaustive review of that at this point, but what I will tell you is that the summary of that is that in May of this year, the airport will be 20 years old. And given its condition, it's been very well taken care of. It's in fantastic shape. And really, aside from a couple of small deferred maintenance items, which you would expect on a facility of 20 years old, the airport has done a great job maintaining that facility. So we didn't really identify any physical limitations to the building. We go from existing conditions into stakeholder listening sessions. And so these were individual meetings that we had with all of the stakeholders that I identified. Each individual airline, the car rental groups, the pre and post secured concessionaires, all of the folks that interact with the airport. Essentially, it was a listening session where we asked questions. We more or less took their feedback on any issues or challenges that they see with the airport now and going into the future. And again, down the road, we'll share all of that interaction. But the summary of that really was that as a result of the airport continuing to see positive growth, all of these stakeholders are having challenges with the terminal as well because they're having to grow and change and contribute to the expanded growth of the airport. So those, in these sessions, a lot of the discussion had to do with spatial-related issues. From there, we navigate into forecasting, which Justin will talk about in a minute. And this is really that heavy, robust planning effort where we start to identify what are the issues and the challenges that the airport's going to see now and over the duration of our planning period, which is a 20-year planning period. From there, we move into looking at alternatives for expansion. And so this is a very high-level conceptual view of what we've identified as the challenges in the airport and how we would translate that into a potential expanded airport project. But again, this is not design per se, this is high-level planning view. And then following that, tomorrow we're going to be having a discussion with the Airport Advisory Committee and trying to hone in on what would be a preferred alternative. And from there, then we can lead into some of the financial discussions. What would an expanded airport cost? And then how would that be implemented? Understanding that it takes a lot of partnerships in order to implement a project like this, including the FAA and the state of North Dakota. And then finally, we'll come back in April with the final report, which will include all of those pieces. So this first slide, before I turn it over to Justin, is a slide that was provided by the airport. It identifies employments or passenger boardings going back to 2000. Now, keep in mind, the terminal as we see it today opened up in May of 2005. So this reflects before the new terminal and after the new terminal. And you'll see the real story here is that since 2000, the airport has seen a continuous and regular level of growth. With passenger boardings maxing out, as Matt mentioned, in 2019 at about 309,000 passengers before we had the big COVID dip in 2020. But even following 2020, you see a pretty rapid increase in employments to this last year exceeding 294,000 passenger boardings. The 240,000 passenger boarding number that's indicated on here is that's what the original terminal was designed for in 2005. So starting about 10 years ago, we've started to see growth at the airport that's starting to exceed the capacity. Now, this is just a small glimpse of that picture, but it starts to give us some indicators that the terminal is going to start feeling some growth challenges. And this is really a trend that you would expect with a terminal like this. And so I'm going to hand it over to Justin from Mead and Hunt. He's going to go over some of the forecasting stuff, and then I'll come back up and finish it up.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor. Justin Anderson with Mead and Hunt. I'm the lead terminal planner on the project. So what Jeff just described was the current number of employments that have gone through the facility in 2024. So what we do is we take a look and we forecast out 20 years into the planning horizon to gauge the employment levels for the airport. So we use various methodologies for this, but the moral of this story is when we're taking a look at how the area and how the airport can grow, we're looking at various variables and factors, economic factors, industries in the area to gauge population levels, and that correlates with travel. So in the 20-year planning horizon, we are looking close to about 490,000 employments. So this is important when it comes to terminal sizing. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the reason for this growth and what's happening at Bismarck is starting to experience an upgauging in aircraft. So when the terminal was originally designed, it was designed for 50-seat regional aircraft. What airlines are doing is they're replacing those 50-seat regional aircraft with 75-seaters and even the mainline aircraft, which can hold up to about 190-seat aircraft. Such as the 737s, A319s, A320s. So those are great to have for the area, for the airport, but it puts a lot of stress on the facility for a terminal that was originally designed for those smaller aircraft. You have more passengers that are going through the facility at one time. So when we take a look at, well, how big does a terminal need to be based off of employment levels, we want to make sure that we provide an optimum level of service for the passengers. We also need to balance the fact that we don't want to over-design and over-plan that leaves the airport with a hefty utility bill of an unused facility. So how we do this is we have some metrics that we want to provide a certain amount of square footage per passenger when they come through the facility. And then also we want them to be processed in a timely manner when they go through facilities. So that's standing in a ticketing, a ticket counter line, standing through a security checkpoint. We want to make sure that there's enough space provided for that queuing as well. So we do use industry standards, as you see here on the screen. So the first thing we do is we gauge the amount of gates. This is going to impact the amount of terminal space that's going to be needed beyond security checkpoint. So right now we have 4 gates at the airport, which you can see the first 4 lines in this scheduled chart right here. As you can tell, those first 4 gates are pretty. They have about four flights a day on those gates, and that puts a lot of a little room for growth at the current with that current configuration. So we are looking at adding 2 more gates in this concept. The 7th gate that you see there, that is for a hypothetical conceptual scenario. But for this upcoming project, we are looking at 6 gates to be at the terminal. When we look at the interior of the facility, we want to look at the peak or the hourly throughput of passengers. So what you see here on the chart is how over the planning horizon, the flow of passengers change throughout the days. So on the x-axis, you see the hours of the day, and on the y-axis, you see the number of passengers that are going to be going through the airport. The curve that's filled in that teal color is what's happening today. So currently, you have about 230 passengers that during the peak hour that go through the facility. Looking out in the 20-year planning horizon, that's going to be increasing to about 412 feet. I'm sorry, not feet, employments, passengers. So what this shows is the airport is being used throughout the day, but there are busier times that facility needs to accommodate, and that's in the peak hour is what the terminal is being sized for. And here is this is what our terminal program comes up with. So once we figure out how many peak hour employments are going through the terminal, we use those industry standards, those metrics of the amount of square footage that needs to be applied to each peak hour employment, each peak hour passenger. And also those time metrics that we don't want them standing in line, or we want them to be processed in a certain time. Then it generates this program here and the amount of space that's needed. So currently the facility is about 73,000 square feet. If we look at today's traffic numbers, the facility is deficient by about 9,525 square feet. And when we look at the 20-year planning horizon, we're about 54,000 square feet in the red. So that is what our concepts, our future concepts are based off of, is this program. I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff to introduce our concepts.
Okay, so I'll keep things moving along. So there's several areas of focus that, after going through all of the forecasting, that we identified that are important areas that we'll be looking at as we go through the planning effort. The ticketing hall baggage claim, which has a lot to do with congestion, outbound baggage area, which has more to do with bag screening and security, and the inbound baggage area, which more or less has to adjust to accommodate additional gates and flights. On the upper level, as you can imagine, we're going to be focusing on departure lounges. With larger planes, you need more space at each one of the gates in order to accommodate that. And then, of course, currently, with additional gates, we need to look at additional passenger boarding bridges, and then an increase in the concession program, which is a revenue-generating aspect of the airport. So as a part of this, we're required to do alternative developments. We look at different ways in order to adjust this. So these first two slides that I'm showing you quickly, it came from the 2019 master plan. So as a part of the master plan, there were alternatives that were explored. There were two. One is this single pier option, which the planning team discovered pretty quickly had a lot of negative impact on the development of the airport, more or less because it pushes out towards the taxiway and runway. We also then, or the planning team also at that time, looked at developing a linear option, which had a lot more flexibility and made a lot more sense in the master planning stage. And so then after we completed our forecasting, we looked at the creation of three alternatives that were based on a linear model that stretches essentially parallel with the taxiway along the existing ramp. Each one of these has a variety of positives and negatives, mainly in terms of its impact on the existing apron, so minimizing additional apron construction, but also taking into consideration centralizing the airport, the terminal, which makes it more functional for passenger flow. And so these were presented to the Airport Advisory Committee, and then tomorrow we're going to be reviewing what appears to be a hybrid version of Alternative 3, which is leaning towards a preferred alternative. And that's what these two slides show you. So this is the departure level. You'll see this purple line that kind of runs through that food and beverage in Gate 3 and Gate 4. That's actually the footprint of the terminal today. And so a couple of things that I want to point out on here is you'll notice that a lot of the expansion that's being proposed is being proposed to accommodate the passenger departure lounges on the concourse level. Other changes that we're proposing on this level primarily have to do with the security checkpoint. In this case, we're proposing rotating that checkpoint to allow more space for queue and more space for additional checkpoint lanes now and into the future. One thing I want to note here, specifically for the commissioners, because I know a lot of you, well, none of you were on the commission back in 2005 when the terminal opened, is that the timing of the terminal was very much impacted by September 11, 2001. There was a large delay that happened after that time frame. Well, at the time we were designing the terminal, we had to try to establish some criteria for checkpoints because at that point, the TSA didn't exist. And so when the terminal was designed, there were no guidelines for checkpoints or bag screening. And so a lot of the impacts that we're seeing in the airport in these two areas are just simply a result that there was no guidelines, and now there's guidelines. TSA has matured, and now we need to adapt the airport to meet current TSA standards. And so that's where you're seeing the improvements here, is we're trying to accommodate TSA standards, which, oh, by the way, also make the experience better for passengers when they move through security. That's the same thing on the apron level. The largest part of this expansion really relates to upgrading the baggage screening area to accommodate current TSA standards, and then adding some additional space to accommodate the larger departure lounges and the additional gates. So that would be additional airline ticket space, and then a third baggage claim device and some improvements to the car rentals. And so this is the preferred concept that we'll be presenting to the Airport Advisory Committee tomorrow to get their feedback on. There is some landside development that's also being proposed. More or less, we're looking at adjusting the Terminal Boulevard or the airport access road, which will allow for some additional potential surface parking, long-term and short-term, and then will allow for deliveries and receiving to the airport to be much more efficient and off of the access road. And then we're also looking at expanding the curb for departures. The curb for departures has always been somewhat constrained based on the layout of the current access road. So we're looking at some landside improvements as a part of this as well. And so our next steps, we're at the first step, which is tonight's City Commission meeting. As I mentioned, we'll be meeting with the Airport Advisory Committee tomorrow. Assuming that the preferred concept comes out of that meeting, then we'll be navigating into developing estimated costs based on the preferred alternative, and then identifying a funding implementation plan, which takes into account not only all of the costs related to the project, but where the potential funding could come from the various partners that are going to have to contribute to this. And then following that, we'll be holding a public information session, which is a requirement that we need to follow. But it's also a good opportunity for the public to weigh in on their thoughts. And then finally, like I said, in April, we'll be delivering a final report. So with that, if there are any questions from the commissioners, I'm happy to answer those at this time.
Go ahead, Commissioner Risch.
Madam Chair, Jeff, Dustin mentions going from 4 to 6 gates, but when I look at the landside development, we actually have 8 different planes. Is it gate 1 and gate 6 just have an additional gangway or whatever it's called?
Yeah, great question. So when we were developing the alternatives before we got into the preferred alternative, we always want to take into consideration what the next generation of expansion could be after that. So what the forecast is telling us is that 6 gates is where the airport needs to be. But from a planning perspective, we looked out to 8 gates so that in the future, if the airport needs to expand, we've at least have a plan for the airport to expand down the road. So at this stage, we're only looking at 6 gates, but we've at least understand what 8 gates would do on the airport.
Just to follow up, I think it's a wonderful plan. It's my portfolio. I've been to a couple of the meetings. It's well thought out, good presentations. My one question I have is, all of these projects have a great deal of cost as far as planning, engineering, architectural, things like that. We don't know what it's going to cost. It's going to be a substantial investment by the city or whatever the entities. But what about percentage-wise? Are we going to be spending on engineering, architectural, planning, things of that nature? Percentage of the project?
Yeah, another good question. There are a lot of influencing factors that are going to contribute to that. But I have looked at what some of the engineering costs have been on some of the other airport projects. Fargo is in a development stage, and Dickinson is both in a development stage. And typically what you find, depending upon how much landside work there is, how much airside civil work there is, and then the complexity of the project, it's usually in that 10% of the construction cost range has been fairly typical.
Any other questions? Okay, I think we're good.
All right. Again, thank you for your time. You bet.
All right, before we move on to what I think will be a long string of Ben, I forgot to mention, we were going to pull M, consider the request to go into the executive session. The finance department has a few more things to go through for that, so we're not going to do that tonight, and that'll be back later. So I just didn't want to wait until the end to tell you guys that. Okay, so on to B, public hearing on ordinance 6599, a zoning map amendment, residential zoning district to commercial zoning district. Ben?
Thank you, Chair Cleary and Mayor, members of the Commission. This is the beginning of the string of Ben. The item you referenced is First International Bank and Trust and Aligned Properties LLC are requesting approval of a zoning map amendment from the RT Residential Zoning District to the conditional CG Commercial Zoning District as outlined in Ordinance 6599, in your packets, which would be on lots 1 through 3, Block 1, Washington Square Edition. The property is located in north central Bismarck, north of Interstate 94, west of State Street, in the southwest quadrant of the intersection of North Washington Street and Ash Coulee Drive. Project area is comprised of 125,028 square feet within 2 lots on 1 block. Future land use associated with the proposal is community mixed use, and the existing zoning is RT residential. Requested action would include the development of future office and commercial uses for the area. Planning and Zoning Commission considered this request at the November meeting of 2024. No members of the public spoke on the item, and no written testimony was received. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the zoning map amendment from the RT residential to the CG commercial zoning district as outlined in Ordinance 6599 of your packets. Is there any questions that any of you have?
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on the agenda item, please come forward.
Thank you, Chair Cleary. Landon Neimel of Swinson-Hagen Engineering, representing the applicants. Yeah, just to add a little bit to what Bennett spoke about, we're just rezoning this area. You can see a lot of the area around us to the north and the east is already zoned CG or CA. This kind of fits in the neighborhood a little bit better. There's two major arterial roads that we'd be intersecting with here. There is some residential to the west, but we would have to buffer against them. There's a considerable grade between that property and this property. So there'll be a lot of grade in between there. There'll be landscaping also installed. We've eliminated some of the heavier zoning out of the CG, so it is a restricted zoning. So some of those heavier uses that people tend to see and not really care for within the CG, we've eliminated some of those. So we're basically looking for picking a few items out of CG and using them in this particular area. But I can answer any questions if you have them.
This is a public hearing. Anyone else who wishes to speak? Second call for public hearing. Third and final call. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, item C, public hearing on ordinance 6600, a zoning map amendment from agricultural zoning to residential.
Okay, thank you again, Chair Cleary. Members of the commission, the property in question that Madam Chair just referenced is located in northwest Bismarck, west of River Road, in the southeast quadrant of the intersection of Sandy River Drive and Fernwood Drive. The project area is comprised of 7.11 acres and is on one lot within one block. Future land use associated with the proposal is rural residential, and the existing zoning is agricultural. The requested action would bring the property into conformance with the use into conformance with the current zoning ordinance, or the zoning ordinance rather, excuse me. Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this request at the November meeting of 2024. No members of the public spoke on the item, and no written testimony was received. At the conclusion of the public hearing, Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the zoning map amendment from the A Agricultural Zoning District to the RR Residential Zoning District for Lot 1, Block 1, Huckler Park subdivision as outlined in Ordinance 6600 in your packets. Any questions?
This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on ordinance 6600? Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. We'll close the hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, item D, public hearing on ordinance 6601, a zoning map amendment from conditional CA commercial district to CA commercial district.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The property Chair Cleary just announced is located in North Bismarck between North Washington Street and Normandy Street. adjacent to the south side of 43rd Avenue. The project area is comprised of 53,972 square feet, and it exists within one lot on one block. Future land use associated with the proposal is neighborhood mixed use, and the existing zoning is conditional CA commercial. The requested action would facilitate future commercial development of the site. The Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this request at the November meeting of 2024. No members of the public spoke on the item, and no written testimony was received. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of a zoning map amendment from conditional CA to the CA Commercial District as outlined in Ordinance 6601. Any questions that you may have related to this proposal?
This is a public hearing on Ordinance 6601. Anyone who wishes to speak on the agenda item, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Go ahead and close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll move we approve.
Second.
With a motion and a second, go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zinker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, item E, consider the request to receive a presentation on recent public engagement efforts by the Community Development Department and hold a public hearing on Ordinance 6602, a zoning ordinance text amendment for public notice signs. Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this presentation will be maybe a little bit less PowerPoint driven and more kind of using our internet resources. Part of that is to show members of the public where they can access some information. This particular topic is, I know it's important to the mayor and important to staff. And I think the mayor had requested that we as staff provide sort of a little update of what has been done, at least in community development, and in particular the planning division within community development to enhance public engagement opportunities, and then tying that into a ordinance proposal for consideration tonight as well. So one of the items I wanted to hit on is some of the actual notification that's being sent to members of the public. And let me try to switch over to the projector here. Okay, you'll see a postcard format notice for the past few months, or actually this was the actual go live version of this for the past round of public notifications for our Planning and Zoning Commission. But historically we have sent standard 8.5 by 11 letters in City of Bismarck marked envelopes to what we call adjoining property owners, so individuals within the city who live within 300 feet of a proposal or in the ETA within basically a quarter mile of the proposal. And we have switched up to a postcard style format. One, it doesn't necessarily hurt our feelings, but we're not sure that people are actually opening things marked by the City of Bismarck in a timely manner. And so we've switched to sort of a more obvious, sort of in-your-face type of notification to members of the public, so they can more easily understand what they're being notified about. There's a QR code that will take you to a link. I'll go to the link here in a little bit and show you a little bit more about some of the items online. But it's actually, you know, from a cost standpoint, it's actually, I think, going to pencil out a little bit more affordable for us to do it this route as well. So you can see there's information about generally where it's located, how to access more information. On the back side, there's contact information. So if you have specific questions, you can contact the planner and how to get a hold of that individual. And then you'll also see project ID numbers in there, which will make a little bit more sense in the next item I show here. Okay, I'm going to take you to some newly reformatted I guess, websites that we've been involved with over the past year to 2 years. If you go to the departments page, and I'm doing this for the convenience of those at home as well, and you scroll down to the Community Development Department, you'll get our landing page. Both planning and Metropolitan Planning Organization have gone through, I'll say, sort of a refresh, reformatting of their websites. Building inspections will be the next division on the list to proceed that way. But in particular, I'll take you to the planning division. It looks considerably different than has in the past. The way information is arranged on here hopefully is more intuitive to individuals from the public to be able to find. There's some new guidance documents such as this land development process, which goes through the various planning actions that are undertaken, timeframes associated with them, and you can find more information out about that information. Let me try to go back here. Oops. There we go. The other point I wanted to, or the other item I wanted to point out on this website, oops, is the open development projects page. I referenced some project codes on that postcard, and essentially every active project that's going through the planning process right now is listed on this page, and the QR code on that postcard will take you directly to this site, or should take you directly to this site. And these each item has a specific project code, so it correlates with the one you have on your postcard that you receive. But if you're able to click into one of these, for example, it provides information on, oh, I'm sorry. It provides information on the type of project it is, what the status of it is, what the public hearing date is associated with it, provides information on how to contact the individual planner associated with it, who the applicant essentially is. So it essentially provides a fair amount of information consolidated on this page here. Additionally, which is something we hadn't had previously in a concise site like this, we also list all of the active site plans that are under review right now. So all of those commercial or industrial or larger scale development projects at the site plan level can all be found at this site as well. Going along the lines of changes to the website that have been made, I'll go back out to City of Bismarck's homepage. We heard about a year or two ago, boy, this is really sensitive, I apologize, that there would be an appreciation for just folks who maybe in the business world who just are not familiar with the development process. Maybe they want to start a new business, maybe they want to relocate their business, maybe they want to expand their business. Where do I even start? Where do I go for information? So various departments within the city had worked with kind of a group put together by the Bismarck-Mandan Chamber, EDC, which essentially included members of the Bismarck-Mandan Chamber, EDC, which included lending agencies, commercial realtors, contractors, and a variety of other business interests to develop sort of a set of just kind of basic information that you can access from the community tab under starting, growing, relocating your business. And there's sort of 4 primary areas that have been developed in here with what I would say are things that a business may want to think about, like where, if I'm opening or starting a business, what should I think about? Where do I go? How do I ensure I can open my business here related to zoning? What is zoning? How do I find out more about it? We've just recently updated, many of you are aware, our home-based occupation rules, so there's some information on that. and some information on the extraterritorial area. There's other areas of notification related to if you're a new business, what type of licensing or permitting is required. We provide some of that information here. If you're looking to construct or expand your new business, what are the processes that I need to go through, and who do I contact to get more information about those various processes? And then finally, some information on some of the noted incentive programs that the city of Bismarck offers. Any questions on any of that information so far? The other item I'll touch on before I get into the proposed ordinance before you is we've been working, I think, pretty effectively with Bismarck Mandan Home Builders Association. They've kind of established a communication working group, and so Brady Blaskowski, our building official, myself, also members from the city of Mandan, Burley County, Bismarck Mandan Chamber EDC, have been getting together primarily to identify from the HBA perspective, what are the things that you want to know about and how do you want to be informed about those things. I think primarily they've taken place, some of those information sharing sessions have taken place in a spring workshop we held earlier this year and a late fall workshop we held last year. Basically, the group that the HBA has assembled, including the local jurisdictions, kind of helped jointly develop topics for that. So we'll be meeting with Don Watson and that group in the near future. I think actually not next week, but the following, to identify the set of topics for the next contractor engagement meeting we'll have, which will likely be in February or March of this year. Topics yet to be determined. But usually I think there's been I've been happy with the turnout. I think the first one we had, there was probably 65 or 70 members there. It was a little less the last turnout we had, maybe 40 or 50 members at the last meeting. But I think thus far they've been well received. I guess if you hear anything different, we'd sure appreciate it. We don't want to host meetings just to host meetings. I guess the point is we want them to be productive, and I think that's where the help of understanding the topic areas from the HBA is important. The other item I'll discuss. Yes, go ahead.
So you're meeting more regularly with that smaller group, though, correct?
Yeah, typically we meet, I would say historically we've been meeting about maybe quarterly, I'll say. It's been a little less this past cycle, but there is another group of HBA members that the city of Bismarck, not just community development, but administration, engineering, public works, community development, meet with representatives of the Bismarck Mandan HBA board on a quarterly basis, and those are regular intervals that are held. And again, topics I think are typically, agenda items are established by, either staff and or the members of the HBA to discuss. That's been going on for, quite before my time. I think that even started, but I would say that's happened, on a fairly regular basis, generally on a quarterly interval. So thank you for noting that. So the item, the proposed ordinance change that for consideration tonight is really, it's in part driven by, I think, comments that we've heard members of your board provide in terms of finding ways to better inform the public about public hearings. It's driven by, frankly, comments we hear from the public about feeling like they haven't been informed about public hearing opportunities. I'm sure you have heard the comments, as we have heard the comments from members of the public, that well, my neighbor got a public notice, but I didn't get one. Why aren't you notifying me? And so we've been trying to find alternatives to address some of those instances if there's people outside of that notification window. And so one of the things we've identified is actually an item that's commonly used in cities around the country and even our region. It's a pretty low-tech option. It's commonly referred to as posting the property, but essentially it'd be a temporary sign that would be posted at the property. It can vary what the content of that sign says, but generally they look pretty consistent in terms of their aesthetic, in terms of the material that's on them. And it's generally meant to inform the public that on this site there is something that's going to be considered. And so I think where we would propose placing it, utilizing this is to, in a similar vein, sort of parallel to when we send out our adjoining property owner letters. So we'd try to post the property or have the property posted 10 days in advance of the public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and probably generally to be taken down after the hearing takes place. It would be for items that we generally notify our public adjoiners process for. So this would include things like special use permits, things like planned unit developments, zoning map amendments, final plats, rural lot splits, and appeals to Planning and Zoning Commission decisions. The way the current ordinance is written, it proposes that the applicant post the property. We have recently, and I think staff has provided you some testimony that maybe provides some concerns from the applicant's perspective. I think from memory, I'll try to summarize that. I think the concerns are generally maybe the consistency of the being a concern from different applicant to different applicant, the application of it, the cost that might be, the additional cost that might be associated with it, maybe the sightliness of the signs, where signs are being posted on a property. And I would say I'm happy the email was submitted. There's actually some good suggestions that I think staff we agree with. And the notification or the testimony goes on to suggest that perhaps city staff should take over this role of posting the properties. And I'll be frank with you, we're open to that. We can do that. If this is a direction you want us to go and you don't want the applicant to do it, we can take on that role. I personally have had to post properties as a planner in another community. It is not that overwhelming of an effort. I do not anticipate much staff time being dedicated to this. Frankly, our staff planners should be getting out to these sites anyways and doing a physical observation, and they can post the sign when they're out looking at these sites, so I don't anticipate a lot of extra staff time. I do not anticipate there would be fee changes associated with application or permit fees for this, so that is something we would be open to if you so choose. There was a suggestion also that maybe we take a trial period before we implement this. Open to that too. I think there's a way that we can, I've thought about this since the suggestion came, since I've seen it yesterday, and I happened to talk to actually some of the folks in the room here yesterday at our quarterly HBA meeting. I think there is a way that we could probably do this on a trial period. And again, if that's a direction you want to go, I can kind of walk you through or guide you through that process, or whatever direction you want to go with this posting of properties. I think if you look at other communities and other states, it's maybe about 50-50 with having the community either post the property themselves as staff or have the applicant do it. I think the one advantage that I think we saw, that having the applicant post the property versus staff is flexibility of sign placement. If staff is posting the property, we'll be restricted to the right-of-way by the site. And maybe that's the best place for it, but maybe that's not the best place for it. So if we were to place the sign, if staff is posting the sign on their property, we would have to get consent to do that. And so I think that's why one of the reasons, I think probably the bigger reasons we suggested that the applicant do that. But again, we're open. If you think this is an idea you want us to go down and you don't want the applicant to do it, you want us to do it, I'm open to that. So any questions?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Ben, so I could tell by the tone that, when did you have the aha moment? Because you guys just, this was staff-driven, right? I'm guessing. So at what point in time did you have the aha moment that you didn't talk to the developers and have their input prior to bringing the ordinance update through planning and zoning and then into tonight?
Yeah, I think we've been open actually to that. I've been open to that process all along, to posting it ourselves. I mean, I think that to me was always an option. I think this is the way it was proposed. But yeah, I mean, if it's a concern to the development community, as was pointed out recently, as significant of a concern, that's, like I said, that's something that we're willing to do.
So let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
So did you ever contact the developers and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this, can we sit down and have a discussion?
Yeah, so in my memory, over the past 3 quarterly HBA meetings, we've been bringing this item up. I would say the first one was just kind of like, okay, we didn't get much of a reaction. The second one, I mean, you can ask them if they're willing to tell you, but I think it was more of a philosophical perspective on posting properties. And then I think yesterday was probably the first time we've received actual, like, practical, like, specific suggestions on what they'd like to see done different, so.
Okay.
Commissioner Zinker, if I can add, we did have a public hearing at P&Z, and unfortunately, no one came to that hearing and talked, from the public and had conversation. So this came to me. I think I got questioned by one of the developers maybe a couple weeks ago. So I asked that they put together something, which I received over the weekend and then forwarded to Ben yesterday.
Sure. So Mayor, if I could respond to that for a second, Madam Chair. So I know for a fact that we've had many discussions at this table for as long as I've been on the commission, that whenever we're going to change directions, whatever entity or partners are involved, that we specifically reach out and make sure that we communicate with that group of people as to however we're changing those directions. My point is, and I appreciate the fact that they're brought up at the quarterly meetings. I'm not going to, say, hey, you're lying about it or anything like that. I trust that happened. But when it came to the point where words were going on paper, so to speak, or on the screen, however you want to look at it, there should have been a diligent reach out to the developers and say, hey, we're going to move this forward. We need to have a sit down. And we've had that before with some other code things, and I can just tell by the tone of the email and a couple phone calls that I've had about this ordinance that there was not that foresight for this scenario to have that discussion months ago with the developers.
Okay, appreciate that. The one other item I forgot to point out as well is we did also reach out to the essentially the consulting engineers and architects to get their feedback on feasibility as well. So,
Commissioner Connolly?
Chair, Commissioners, Ben. I remember having this communication topic has come up a lot to where the city has gone to great lengths, and I've been trying to pull up our email that we get on weekly highlights. And down the very last item is all the different areas to where the city's reaching out to the community to try to get the word out on a lot of cases. And we've had several things like Commissioner Zenker just brought up with different ordinance changes. It seems like somewhere we're not on the same page, like we're just missing. And some of those items have come up with very contentious or where the public notices, they're all within the time frame. They've been advertised, they're out there, and a decision's made, and then it seems like the whole world comes down. And the riverfront, as an example, was one. 3rd Street this summer, when we had all of the street maintenance construction and some restaurants were finding difficulty, that's when I'd mentioned that maybe we look at asking members of the community to come together, and maybe they could tell us and say, stand where you are. And maybe that would be the line of communication to where we could learn where all of these staff-driven efforts are just missing a little bit. Maybe there's something to be garnered from that. And I think you can tell me if I'm wrong, if that's where some of this came from or not, as far as communication. I know I'd talked to you about, so I think the postcards are all right. Some people struggle with QR codes. It's a newer thing that's come onto the map. People are some are really embracing it. There's still some people out there with flip phones and they don't access computers, but they're well invested in our community. They've been around a long time. And so that's some of the areas to where things are, where there's a breakdown in frustrations. And then those are the 3 areas that I remember talking about since I've had this seat and things. So it's coming across like this is another staff-driven effort to get to this outcome where there's been a lot of good efforts and there's probably something to be gained, but yet we're still missing. If the mayor's just getting an email 3 days ago and we have access to that email today, I wonder sometimes if we didn't have that community effort to where they could get together and present something to us, that maybe we can't narrow that gap somehow. And I don't know where to go from there, but I just think to kind of draw up that history.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, and before I let this one get out of my mind, my mom and dad are flip phone users, so when we developed the postcards, I wanted to make sure that there was a way that people that didn't know how to use a smartphone, didn't have a smartphone, could get to that site, and so there's actually a link that's included on that postcard as well that will take them to the same place the QR code does. I think the larger point you're making is a valid one, and I think that's one. You brought up projects that are not just specific to community development, but other departments around the city as well, and I think that's been an area that's been explored. I know admin and communication spearheaded an effort recently to find, I think they were calling it a communications tool, where they would have an opportunity to have a better interaction platform on some of these items with the public. I don't know that made it through the budgeting process as a priority, but I can tell you the point of that story is I think there's recognition that there's an interest in finding more robust ways to get the word out on some of these things the city is working on.
So before we get, I need to make a comment before we get into the public hearing. So, and I'm not pointing fingers or holding anything out, but I do believe that there has been opportunity in this particular case to share this information. There was notification for the public hearing at community planning or the P&Z, and again later. So yes, maybe there wasn't a direct pick up the phone and call. Well, honestly, these developers are watching our notifications on a regular basis. So the fact that they did not come to the P&Z meeting when this ordinance was presented before planning and zoning is I have to hold them a little bit accountable as well because they're regularly checking this. We have to continue to do our best effort, but remember, we do have a limited number of staff people, and we are.
Oop.
How do I get them back?
Well, since we lost the mayor, go ahead, Commissioner Rich.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Ben. I looked at, first saw it was on Thursday on the agenda, and I read it and I thought, wow, this doesn't sound like a bad idea. But then I got two thoughtful emails, one on Sunday and one on Monday with some concerns. And I just really appreciate your willingness, your department, to say, hey, maybe we can post the signs. Maybe we can do a trial basis. And I'd be interested to hear from whoever wants to talk about this from the public tonight. So I don't think there was anything particularly slipshod. It was, we all know what's going on here, and we can make a decision as a council that is right for the community.
Thank you for that comment, Commissioner Risch. Mayor, I inadvertently cut you off. I screwed up and accidentally closed you out, but I think we maybe hit the majority of what you said, so I apologize for that.
No problem.
Anything else for Ben? I think that I agree with you and what Commissioner Connolly said too about just, it's not really just a community development thing. I think that a lot of city staff is trying to strive to find ways to engage with the community. That like outreach and communication can be very tricky. Sometimes it doesn't come until after the fact. So I think that like exploring ways to make that better so that people aren't feeling like they're not hearing about things because our path to them is not working. I think there's always more to be discussed with that, so I appreciate it. With that, this is a public hearing, so anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance 6602, please come forward.
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Chad Moldenauer, and I own K&L Homes here in the community, in addition to Heritage Development. In addition to speaking to you on behalf of my developing and building interests, I've also been a part of a lot of those roundtable discussions, both with the departments and at those quarterly meetings. Going back several years ago, I think it was actually in Mayor Seminary's time, we had requested those quarterly meetings because we found that there were things that were kind of being decided on that we didn't feel like we were adequately participating in. And one thing that I can tell you is I'm really thankful for the level of communication that we have with current staff. I feel like we've come a long ways since those days. I'm very appreciative for having a staff that's willing to do some things differently. If you looked at some of the presentations on the website and some of the different ways of reaching out to the community, it's really obvious that city staff is doing things differently. And being that my first year in our company was back in 2009, we had city administrators and city engineers and city planners that had been in their roles for sometimes 30 plus years. And it was pretty clear to me that we were kind of just regurgitating the status quo and not considering new ideas. So I really appreciate Ben Arith and Daniel Narn and Jason Timonik and the work that they do to try to look at things a little bit differently. I don't particularly agree that putting signs on the properties is going to have a large effect on public notice and public comment. I was part of some of those early discussions, and my recollection may be a little bit different than some others, but 3 quarterly meetings ago, it was brought up as an idea. Hey, what do you think about posting signs on properties where there's public notice coming up or necessary? And for those of you that know me, I'm usually not too varnished. I'm pretty clear about what my thoughts are on things. And I said, how are you going to post signs in the middle of winter? How are you going to put signs up when it's windy outside? How are you going to keep the weeds from growing across signs? It's all these things that I've seen because I've got a history of having to put signs on every single project that I have. And there was a time that I was definitely on SignPro's Christmas list because I was spending money like crazy on signs every year, replacing those signs. Legs would get broken off the signs. The bodies of the signs would blow away. Every concrete truck in the neighborhood would I think, go out of the way to run over my signs. And so I know that those things can get really expensive. And so that was my reaction right away. I said, why in this day and age are we placing signs on properties? And I said, and you're surely not going to ask me to place those signs, because as a developer, I'm not going to have the same motivation for public notice that the city of Bismarck is having. And so that was the first meeting. At the second meeting, we discussed it again. It was actually on the agenda. And at that point, we said, so, where are we going with this sign ordinance? Are you thinking about it more? Are you thinking about the things we discussed? And at that point, guess what? It's already past the P&Z hearing. So it was already at the point where we couldn't really make a comment anymore. We did have one yesterday, and of course, we're here today. So I think we've had some ability to make public comment, but or comment on this ordinance, but our ability to actually affect it, I don't know if it's been there. One of the biggest things that I think is concerning to me is that I do feel like we adequately notify the public, not only in the ways that Ben had mentioned, but in a lot of the developments that I proposed or other developers have proposed. They're going through the city's website, but they're also getting these placards that are sent out. One of the things that the city of Bismarck had that I think is really effective is they have a GIS map, so you can tell who your neighbors are. It's really easy to get people involved, and with emails and text messages and X and Facebook, it's making people communicate in a way that we never did before. I think going to like a more archaic way of advertising, like signs, is maybe something that we could have considered a long time ago, but not necessary now. My biggest concern, not only for, I will say that I appreciated Ben's comments. He has taken away some of my moral outrage in having to place the signs on behalf of the city of Bismarck. As a developer, I don't believe it's my job to notify the public. We don't put the placards together that go out in the mail. We don't adjust the city's website. We don't put anything out to the newspaper. I think if the city wants additional notice requirements, I think it should be the city that maintains those signs, that takes care of them, that puts them up, that picks the right places to put them, because we're probably not going to do it with the same motivation in the same way that the city of Bismarck does. But one thing that I think is kind of problematic, and it's something that we see when we read the newspaper, see what the state legislature is doing, or we're even seeing what the new administration is doing on the national level, is first thing that I do when I'm considering making a change, what's it going to cost me and what's the benefit? I'm a business owner, so I want to make sure that if I'm going to do something, that it's going to pay off for me in the long run. We don't know what these signs are going to cost, and that's a concern for me. We don't know how many signs we're going to need. And another thing that I heard, or that I saw when I was reading through the staff report, is that on new developments, we're going to need 4x8 signs. Now, I kind of share with you my frustrations with the 2x3 signs, but those 4x8 signs, it takes a lot to put them in place in the middle of winter. You either have to dig a hole in the ground, good luck doing that when you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of frost, or you've got to get the big signs with the concrete footings. And those things are not cheap. They're easily $2,000 to $3,000 a sign. I don't know how many we're going to need, but I just want to make sure if we're going to put them up for special use permits, not the large signs, but a combination of those, planned unit developments, zoning map amendments, subdivisions, rural lot splits, that could potentially be a lot of signs and a lot of extra work. So I just want to make sure it's fully vetted, that we know that it's going to have the effect that we think it's going to, because to me in a public hearing, it's just as much the quantity of that comment as it is the quality. And random people moving by a development aren't necessarily as affected as those people getting those placards or those notices who are going to be adjacent to those developments. So, like I said, I'd definitely be open to removing the portion of the ordinance that would require developers or people proposing those changes to move those signs around and pick them up. And it's interesting too, because one of the conversations we had in that discussion, that quarterly meeting, was that when we talk with the engineering folks that you work with, they didn't seem to have a problem with posting those signs. Actually, one of my engineers is in the audience today, Landon, an emailer, and he's never missed an opportunity to bill me for something. So there is a real cost to having those engineering folks go out and pick those signs up and put them in place. I did a quick calculation on the smaller signs, probably $300 to $400. Is it going to make or break a project? Probably not. But on the bigger signs, it could be a lot more expensive than that. So I definitely it would encourage the city to rethink who puts those signs in place for the reasons we talked about. But I also want to make sure that if the city is going to spend money, which is clear we're doing here without really knowing how much, that there's a real benefit to it to the community. So thank you for your time. I'm more than happy to stand for any questions you might have.
Go ahead.
Not so much a good question because you answered that ahead of time, but you established a timeline. So when we were first mentioned that staff working with Home Builders Association, working with the EDC as a working group, and that every organization has different timetables. I have another situation for a whole nother topic. The one group meets quarterly, and the timetable for another group is completely different. So when we mention, well, the PNZ, if it's one meeting, people are just kind of getting their mind wrapped around something. If all of a sudden the public hearing happens and then there's more meetings after that, context makes a lot of difference. Mm-hmm. And that might be in and of itself some of where we're close, but we're just missing. So I appreciate the fact that you added that timeline in there.
Yeah.
And if that's not accurate, Ben, with that timeline that he mentioned, clarifications, I'm always open to that. So, but I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments, Commissioner Connolly. As I said before, I think the quarterly meetings are an excellent tool that we use to communicate with staff and the various departments. But the reason why the quarterly meetings are there is when we're having an open discussion about something, it's important for us to know how a decision is made and when a decision is made to move something forward.
Any other questions for Chad? Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is a public hearing. Anyone else who wishes to speak on Ordinance 6602, please come forward.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, Cam Knutson with Knutson Companies. I'll agree with the previous speaker on a lot of those points. For me, it was a little tricky getting my head around this item because I feel like all of the requests I've brought over the last couple of years, we've had a very strong turnout and usually some pretty lengthy meetings, a few of those that have gone over 4 hours. So trying to initially wrap my head around the context of this and you know, my lens might be a little bit warped in looking at it because I know we've had no issue in things I brought forward to get the word out. And Facebook has certainly helped with that and the different neighborhood pages. A couple of items if I back up for a moment. The work that community development is doing, Ben and team, what the updates to the website, I think that's all fantastic. I've probably, at least over the last couple of years, been more involved with that quarterly HBA meeting, and that's been super, super helpful. So I think, Mayor, your comments about not showing up for planning and zoning, that's completely fair. I was looking back at when this meeting happened, looked like it was November 20th. I happened to be out of state for a back surgery that I had 5 days prior, so I'm guessing I must have missed it there. And then it was December 16th that we had our meeting where I became first aware of this. So for me, the context in thinking through this wasn't just through my lens. We'd be able to figure out a process and system. There would be the added cost of doing that and coordinating. But also the lens of just all the other people that would be applying for things. We've had a bunch of examples already tonight. The previous application that was approved, I think that was the 4th or 5th request for that project over the last year and a half, 2 years. So that applicant, he's not doing real estate on a daily basis. He's in the medical field, busy guy with 3 little kids. He's had these requests come through. I mean, in that case, it would have been 4 or 5 times that a sign would have to go up, down, up, down. So it just becomes quite a bit. So I think thinking about those that aren't doing this on a regular basis, determining where to place a sign, how to anchor it, how to do one call if you're worried about utilities. That was my lens, and that was my email that I had sent out primarily was thinking through that lens of those that are not doing this on a regular basis. It would be it'd be quite a burden. So I appreciate the discussion we had yesterday and tonight with community development saying they're okay with taking this on. That certainly addresses a lot of my concerns. I would say if this is approved, that part would be really important in thinking about the fact that most requests aren't the regular developers, but the various folks in our community that are doing this once in a while and aren't as familiar with the process. So keeping that item in mind. And again, this could be a warped lens for me, because when I see public hearing, I like instantly start getting a little bit of anxiety. But traveling, a lot of places where I've seen these kind of signs, they have not looked good. They're usually very beat up, sun faded. So the other ask there would just be, if this proceeds, let's be thoughtful about the look and the design of these signs, so they're not a major eyesore scattered all throughout town. I think that covers the majority of my points, but again, final summary would be just, I do appreciate community development on the work they've done here in addressing feedback that we had over the last 24 hours with taking this on if they do proceed. So any questions? Okay. Thanks.
Mayor, Commissioners, Jeff Sattler Homes here in Bismarck, and my thoughts and feelings mirror both Chad's and Cam's. And I guess my main fear about this was posting of the signs myself, because we all live in North Dakota and know the ground is frozen for 4 to 6 months out of the winter, and a 4x8 sign is a hard sign to hold up. And hearing that the city is open to doing that, if it's the wishes of the commissions to pass this, I just want to make sure that the costs associated with the sign placement isn't then passed on to permitting costs or some other permit or fee along down the line. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Mayor, hope you're somewhere warm, and members of the commission. The beautiful thing about going last is I don't have to say a lot, because I echo everything that my colleagues have said. This is going to be very labor intensive. It's an expensive solution. It's not necessary. I would say that money would be better spent by sending another notice to the adjacent property owners. Send them 2 more notices. It's going to be a lot cheaper, and it's going to be a lot less labor that city staff is going to have to deal with. This is going to become a pain for staff. It's going to be expensive. Signs are going to get shot. They're going to fall down. They're going to have to be repaired. This is going to turn into a real nuisance. So I would urge the commission to vote against this. Thank you. Any questions? Thanks.
This is still a public hearing for ordinance 6602. Anyone else who wishes to speak on the ordinance, please come forward. Second call for the public hearing. Third and final call for the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. What are, does anyone have questions for Ben, I guess, or?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if it's okay, I heard a couple questions in there that I was going to address. One is the dollar value. Actually, with our last budget cycle, we were able to shift some funds around. We're budgeting about $2,500 to invest in the signs. We've priced some of them out, some through, we've looked at different options, even through our own Public Works Department, other pre-made signs, and in doing some of the initial research, I think we could probably get a sufficient amount that we need for that price. I don't remember at least in my time here that we've had any more than 10 public hearings going on at the same time. So I think our initial procurement would probably be about 15 signs that we'd be looking at getting, and we think we can do it in that $2,500 range. And the other question, and maybe it was more of a concern that was brought up, was changes to permitting costs. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I do not anticipate increasing permitting or application fees because of this effort. So I was just going to address those questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Any other questions for Ben? Ben, stay here for a sec. Commissioner Risch.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Ben. So the way it's worded now, we can't pass it tonight if you're willing to actually post the signs.
Correct.
So it would probably make the most sense that we table it till the next meeting. You meet with these folks, come to some sort of a understanding.
Commissioner Risch, Madam Chair, Mayor, members of the commission. I think there's a couple ways you can do it. I think, what I was hearing is maybe some, apprehension that this is going to work, that it's going to maybe blow up in our face. We're willing to try a trial period to test it out. And so an option for you to consider, and Julie can tell me if I'm going too far off base here, but you may consider, one, if you think staff should be doing it, one, directing staff to change the ordinance to make staff responsible for posting signs, and two, maybe you want to continue this meeting for 6 months, maybe you want to continue it for a year, and we can post signs in an interim basis to see what the problems are. And after that time frame, if we think it is too onerous, too difficult for staff, I'm not going to have staff continue to do things that are going to be, counterproductive to other things we're working on. So I think there's options you have if you'd like to have staff do this, and if you want to try it on a trial basis, that's one option I can think of. So.
Go ahead.
Under that scenario, we wouldn't need an ordinance. You could just go ahead and do it.
We could
If we're
do it.
directing-
I think we could do it anyways, and we can always go above and beyond the notification process. I think from staff's perspective, my perspective, we'd prefer to have it in ordinance. One, it gives the customers or the public a general expectation of how they think they will be notified of projects. Two, it puts some accountability on staff to do what we say we're going to do.
Commissioner Connolly. Go ahead, Mayor.
I was going to make a motion that we direct staff to amend or change the ordinance so that staff would place the signs, but that this be a 1-year trial basis. And while we're doing that, I would also like to ask staff to look at what it would take to do a reverse 911 type call delivery system for notifications, because my opinion is the mail service is not reliable for timely delivery, because I think our mail is 10 days in advance. And I can tell you from my own experience, I receive mail about once a week at my home. And that becomes difficult. And I do not think the newspaper is read regularly by people. We need to find ways to make our actions transparent. And so that would be my motion. It was long-winded, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, I guess, a procedural thing, and maybe I'll look to Julie there. Would it be easier to just continue this meeting out a year and then act on the ordinance then? I'm not sure how we would draft the interim thing in an ordinance.
Well, it could be continued, but I'd like to have a trial period.
Sure. Yep. Gotcha.
So we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I know that there was at one point. Commissioner Connolly?
I do have concerns even if it's under a trial because of, if it's with $2,500, but I've put in a lot of temporary signs in the last 3 years. I think everybody's well aware of that. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, I've even had some very industrial rated posts, and our wind absolutely destroys them. So I'm wondering if it's efficient in the way, because I'm a big fan of, I'd like to get the same amount of work done with the fewest work steps, so to speak. And I really struggle to think that even running a pilot would get us there. Where some of the other things that I mentioned, one of the things was there are owners of buildings, some of them corporations, some of them developers, some of them just an owner, and then they have tenants on the inside. Some of the businesses downtown by that particular project that I brought up, the word didn't go all the way down the food chain, and that's where some of that struggle of communication is that, well, that should be on them. At the same time, we're trying to attract business. We're trying to keep those open. Even at this table, we have several incentive programs, but now we're drawing a barrier line to where some of those people might struggle by a pattern of communication. And I just think there needs to be more work on that, or even like a second postcard or a timeline. Now, when we talk the timeline here to where now we know where those quarterly HBA meetings went versus the planning and zoning, we're missing on timing a little bit. Can we work on the timing a little bit better before we go big or go home, so to speak? And I don't know if that would take a changing of the motion at all, but that's what I think we take a swing at first, because those avenues seem more efficient than signs and whatnot out there. Because also a lot of people see signs. They're driving 20, 30, 40 miles an hour. They're not stopping to, and hopefully they're not dallying where their line of sight is on that sign too long and they're running in the back of somebody. Just food for thought.
Commissioner Zenker.
Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, Commissioner Rich is right. I mean, we don't need this ordinance to make this happen. We can just simply implement policy and call the developers and put it in the right of way, just to notice those meetings when they're happening and what's going on. And there are additional tools that you pointed out on the website, and just to steer it to the website. We use this exact same thing in engineering for when we do road stuff. So it's not a surprise to me that we have it here. The only difference is that when we're doing road upgrades and those types of things, is we're trying to get as many people involved, because those streets and whatever we're changing affects a large amount of people. You know, some of it's 8,000-9,000 people, so they can go home and do their thing on the interweb and get their information as to what's going on. And there is a cost to that, because we pay for that through our engineering fees when they go through the design. So I don't think we need this. I think we can do it for a trial basis, just a slight policy change, and move forward from there. And then we can see and have some proof in the pudding, so to speak, as to what we have 6 months or a year later. I mean, we all know that we go through the public hearings now, so that way when it thaws, hopefully in about 45 days, that we can start digging and get into construction season. I mean, that's really what we're looking for, so.
Can I get some clarification as far as like the motion? He's asking for like a 1-year trial. So does that mean that with that, would the ordinance not go into place like Commissioner Zenker's talking about, and we'd be coming back to it to see if there's any point?
So I think, Mayor, if I understood you correctly, maybe you're going with my initial recommendation, and there's multiple ways to skin a cat, but maybe you're going with my initial recommendation that we continue the public hearing for a 1-year period. On a trial basis, we'll go out and start placing the signs as we would as if this were an ordinance. And then after that 1 year, we would appear before you basically to finalize if we think this process has worked, and if so, do you want to commit it to ordinance or not? Did I capture that correctly, Mayor?
That's correct, because I think I amended my motion to say it would be a continued hearing. But we would, in the meantime, run a 1-year trial. Now, if we can handle it by policy, I'm all for that. I would withdraw my motion because policy is less cumbersome.
Go ahead.
Ben, you think you can do it through policy? I'll withdraw my second. I withdraw my second.
Yeah, if that's your preference, we can do it that route as well.
Do you need a different motion from us then for this?
I think I would
public hearing?
appreciate a motion, because
Okay.
I think I heard some maybe consensus, but a motion would confirm that,
Okay, sounds
I think.
good.
I'll make a motion to deny the ordinance and have policy put in place for 1-year trial run with communication with developers as to when and how the signs will be installed.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
And I'll
Commissioner Zinker?
I'll have to either amend my motion or however you want to do this, but at no cost to the developers as well. I'm sure that's understood already.
I'm agreeable to the amendment.
All right, we have a amended motion and a second. Do we vote on the amendment first, or?
Yeah, so the original motion was withdrawn. And so now we have, it's an amended motion, and that was seconded. So
we
now
can just
you can
vote on that?
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Zinker,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz,
Yes.
Commissioner Rish,
Yes.
Chair Cleary.
Yes.
Okay, we're halfway through.
More of Ben. On to item F, public hearing on ordinance 6603, zoning map amendment from CA Commercial Zoning District to CG Commercial Zoning District.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The property in question is located in northwest Bismarck in the northeast quadrant of the intersection of North Washington Street and, oh, I'm sorry, I gotta share my screen here. Sorry, Mayor, I'll share my screen.
I think I have it.
Oh, you can see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Property in question is located in, showing up on the screen, but not on the computer, so we'll go with it. Okay, the project is located in the northeast quadrant of intersection North Washington Street and 43rd Avenue. Project area is comprised of 8.36 acres within one lot on one block. Future land use with the proposal is community mixed use, and existing zoning is CA commercial. Requested action would allow for future commercial development of the site. Planning and Zoning Commission considered this request at December meeting. One member of the public asked questions related to uses associated with the CG versus the CA. That was explained at the meeting to the satisfaction of the requester. No member of the public provided formal, oral, or written testimony for or against. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the zoning map amendment from the CA Commercial to the CG Commercial Zoning District on part of Lot 27, Block 1, Boulder Ridge, First Edition, as identified in Ordinance 6603. Any questions on this request?
Doesn't look like it. Thanks, Ben. This is a public hearing on ordinance 6603. Anyone who wishes to speak on the ordinance, please come forward.
Thank you, Chair Cleary, Landon Neimiller, Swenson Hagen Engineering again. Yeah, just a couple notes to add to what Ben had provided there. This is one large CA district right now where we're looking for a little heavier zoning. But the goal here is to, much like we did in our previous one, is to keep that heavier zoning away from the residential items. So all these CG zoning will be starting basically where there's some existing office park on the north side and moving west from there. The stuff to the east will remain as it is today as CA zoning. Can answer any questions if you have them.
Go ahead, Commissioner Decker.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mayor, Landon, what's the timeline to have this property annexed to the city? Because this is still outside the city limits, so to speak, but yet encapsulated by the city.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Zanker. So the goal here, of course, is to provide more options for developers and builders that come in here. As soon as we get a little bit more attention in this area, we're hoping to annex as quickly as possible. We've had some options in the past that have fallen through, but we're hopeful with this zoning change that we can move this along a little quicker.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for Landon? I think we're good. Thank you. It's a public hearing on 6603. Anyone else who wishes to speak, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Go ahead and close the public hearing.
I'll move we approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zanker?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, item G, this is a public hearing on ordinance 6604, zone map amendment from R5 residential to conditional R10 residential zoning district. Ben?
Madam Chair, if I could address an item Attorney Meese brought up related to the public sign motion that was passed.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think there was an initial motion that was made, seconded, removed. Then the second motion was made, seconded, then amended, but I don't think the rest of the commission acted on the amended motion from Julie's recollection, so I think we may need to.
Yeah, that's what I was just
That's
double
what
checking.
I was confused
It
on.
was
Do we
very
need, you
confusing.
need a second vote on the amendment?
We need, right, so the motion to amend was passed, but now there needs to be a vote on the amended motion.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes.
So
Okay.
moved.
I think we just
Can
need to
we,
call the roll.
so we'll go ahead and call roll again on the amended motion for ordinance
Actually-
6602.
Can I bring up something in that, because the thought came just after we made it, and that, because you said that, and maybe it's out of order, I don't know, it's the first time I'm bringing something up like this. You mentioned that you think that you can hit it within that $2,500 window. And if it needs to be added to a motion or whatnot, if you exceed hit that $2,500 window, and you know it's going to cost more, if we can just end the pilot at that point.
Well, that's,
That's
yeah, go ahead. They would have to come back and ask for
Yeah.
additional funds.
Okay. I just wanted to mention it.
That's a good question.
Okay.
So is that part of the motion?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll rest.
Okay, we're gonna vote on the amended motion for ordinance 6602. Go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Zanker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. Okay, Ben, why don't we go ahead with item G, public hearing for ordinance 6604?
Yeah. Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, we'll
At
get
least
there
it's just all
eventually.
you, so it's
Yeah.
not that confusing, because you never leave.
I'm part of the confusion, I think. The property is located, as Madam Chair referenced, in central Bismarck, north of East Divide Avenue, and is adjacent to both sides of 26th Street. Project area is comprised of 6.22 acres within 20 lots on 2 blocks. Future land use associated with the proposal is urban neighborhood, and the existing zoning is R5 residential. The requested action would allow 2 family dwellings in addition to single-family dwellings for the subject properties. Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this request in December last year. One member of the public did speak at this meeting and brought up a variety of concerns related to stormwater flooding with his property located in this general area. In anticipation of stormwater issues, this ordinance is a conditional R10 ordinance, and I'll note that basically the conditions in place for this zone map amendment would limit the allowable lot coverage to 30%, which is consistent with what the R5 zoning designation is, and consistent with R5 amendments to increase the lot coverage. The applicants in these conditional zoned R10 lots would have the opportunity to request an adjustment to increase that 30% up to 40%, provided it's reviewed and approved by basically myself and the city engineer to ensure that there's no additional stormwater impacts other than what the R5 originally zoned lots were. At the conclusion of the public hearing, Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of a zoning map amendment from the R5 residential to the conditional R10 residential on lots 2 through 13, Block 25, Stein's 4th Edition, and lots 1 through 8, Block 1, Hay Creek Park Edition, as outlined in Ordinance 6604. Stand for any questions.
Then just to clarify, when they, if they're looking to increase from that 30 to 40%, that's like an individual request that the singular property owner does?
Madam Chair, that's correct. There is a process that has been established now. Recently, you might have remembered, there was a request to increase the R5 lot coverage to the consistent with the R10, which would be moving it from 30 to 40%. There is, in summary, a process for individual lot owners who wish to do that. And depending on how involved and the structure is, what the stormwater impacts might be, it may impact the level of detail needed to be provided in that request. But there is a process to do that for individual lot owners.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ben? Go ahead, Commissioner Connolly.
This, and when we get into the public hearing, it's going to be developed either way. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't be intentional. I listen to the planning and zoning. I think everybody knows I do. But when they talk about that pooling in the ice, this whole area is full of ice. I went the year we had all of the snow. That's one of the areas I walked door to door. I knocked on every door in that neighborhood. And I've hit the ground more times because of ice in that whole area. And that corner's especially tricky. So when it comes to that, the stormwater drainage and things, do what we can just out of safety for everybody in that area. Right at the pinnacle of where 26 meets I think it's Capitol, right down by the park there.
Okay.
A lot of dog walkers all through winter, those type of things. If we can prevent injuries and things by being intentional in this respect, it's a good thing.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. And Commissioner Schell, as you know, is part of our Planning and Zoning Commission, and I think he noted and commented on in response to some of the images shown. So thank you for that. So,
Any other questions for Ben? All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance 6604, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Public hearing is closed. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zanker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, item H, public hearing on ordinance 6605, a zoning map amendment from R5 residential district to RM30 residential district.
thank you, Madam Chair. The property is located on the north side of East Avenue C between North First and Second Streets. Project area is comprised of 7,875 square feet on one lot on one block. Future land use associated with the proposal is urban neighborhood. Existing zoning is R5 residential. The requested action would allow for the development of a small-scale multifamily development in the area. Planning and Zoning Commission did consider this request in December. Staff received one written comment, essentially stating concerns over parking availability in the area. No members of the public provided any additional oral testimony during the public hearing, either for or against. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the zoning map from the R5 residential district to the RM30 residential district on part of Lot 3, Block 4, Northern Pacific Edition, as outlined in Ordinance 6605. That's I'll stand for any questions. That was the end of my presentation.
Go ahead, Commissioner Zenger.
Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, Ben, Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have a couple other similar projects like that in that neighborhood as well? That we might have done 3-4 years ago on Second Street? I thought it was, I could be wrong though.
Close in this area, Commissioner Zanker, you might be thinking I think we did a PUD, a block or so north. It was on Avenue D. Basically, that
Runs east and west.
runs
Yep,
east and
that's
west
okay.
in the same general area. So,
But similar, I mean, it's going to be a multi-unit. There, we did a PUD. Here, we're just doing the R30 because we can bring it across. Adjacent.
There may be sufficient space on this property. The developer was present. He may be present here. I don't know if he's present here. I'm not sure if he knows he can fit, how many units he can fit on there. If you just do the math, just the square footage based on the maximum zoning density would allow up to 5 units. But of course, you've got to provide parking. You've got to address stormwater. In this case, they're going to have to provide 2 15-foot buffer yards against the residential single family. So it's undetermined how many units could be fit on there, but as part of the site plan review process, all of that is reviewed to ensure that sufficient parking and all of the other needs are met, in relation to the ordinance.
I'd be surprised you could get 5 on there, though. Okay. All right, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Connolly.
Ben, do you know the height of the structures that they're talking about? Because I know we had other discussions to where looking down into backyards and those type of things. I know we have the 25 for single family, but then there's been discussion of 40 feet. Do you have that information?
I don't believe, Commissioner Connolly, I don't believe a formal application has been submitted that we've reacted to yet. So.
Okay. It would still come in front of us either way, right?
It would not. It would come before what we call our site plan review committee. So that's made up of generally city staff from almost all of the different departments who make sure that the various ordinance pieces that they're looking at are met through the development process.
Okay. Would you make sure to have that discussion just so it's...
Yes, I can pass that
attention
on
is paid?
to, yes, I can pass that on. So.
Any other questions for Ben? Okay, this is a public hearing on ordinance 6605 zoning map amendment. Anyone who wishes to speak on the ordinance, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Go ahead and close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zanker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right. We have a public hearing on ordinance 6606 to amend the visible license plate ordinance. I don't believe we have any presentation for this, so I'm just going to open the public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on ordinance 6606, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. Go ahead and close that. And what are the wishes of commission?
I
Is
guess
there
it's
any discussion?
my portfolio, it's just changing the language to comply with what's done at the state level as far as displaying a license plate. So I'll move that we approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call roll.
Commissioner Zanker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. Item J, public hearing on release of the 20-foot drainage easement, less the northerly 10 feet and on lots 60 and 61 of Block 1 Misty Waters.
Good evening, Chair Cleary, Mayor and Commissioners. Pat Spillman is requesting release of the 20-foot drainage easement less the northerly 10 feet on lots 60 and 61 Misty Waters. The property is located northwest of Bismarck, west of Burke Creek Loop, east of Misty Waters Drive, and at the end of Serene Circle. The original easements were granted with the plat of Misty Waters, which was recorded on September 27, 2005. This request will not release the 20-foot drainage and access easement that straddles the lot line between lots 59 and 60, Block 1, as there is existing stormwater infrastructure in place there. By city policy, release of any easements other than franchise utility easements requires a public hearing with the city commission. Owners of adjacent properties have been notified of the public hearing. Staff have not received any public comments regarding this request. As a result of all findings contained in the staff report, City of Bismarck staff find that the release of the drainage easement as described in the attached resolution would not adversely impact the public health, safety, and general welfare, and is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan Bismarck Code of Ordinances and relevant state law. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the release of the drainage easement less than northerly 10 feet as presented in the resolution of the staff report on lots 60 and 61, Block 1, Misty Waters. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Any questions for Lauren? No? Thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. Anyone who wishes to speak on the issue, please come forward. Second call for public hearing. Third and final call for public hearing. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. What are the wishes of the commission?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah. We just had this. It was a long, drawn-out process even before I was on the commission and up until now. The decision that came before us last time, no houses were torn down. Agreements were made. It was figured out. I won't vote for this change. So just stating that up front.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a second. And
You know, this affects a lot on the other side of the bay, right? Has nothing to do with the stuff that was going on before.
Okay, I'm a little confused then, because the very person that was bringing it up, it was their house that was on the docket to where there'd be huge changes to it.
No, that is not true.
No.
Okay.
Oh, this is on the other side of the bay.
Okay. Well,
You can vote however you want. I'm just telling you it's the other side of the bay.
okay.
We do have a motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll abstain from voting just because, I mean, I'm not going to vote on something I don't
Okay.
understand.
Go ahead, Whitney.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Rish?
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, item K, introduction of and call for a public hearing on adoption of Title 11.2 wastewater industrial pretreatment program ordinance. Paul.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Title 11.1 regulates entities discharging commercial and industrial wastewater into city infrastructure. Part of this is the local limits that the Commission adopted back in May of 2024. They protect the wastewater treatment plant from receiving waste that may pass through into the Missouri River or interfere with operations, and these are regulated by the EPA. There were enough changes to the ordinance that Title 11.1 will be repealed and replaced with Title 11.2, titled Wastewater Industrial Pretreatment Program Ordinance, which includes the updated EPA requirements from the local limits. Along with that, Title 11, the Utilities Ordinance, makes reference to Title 11.1, which will be amended to reference Title 11.2. The Industrial Pretreatment Program will be hosting a public meeting tomorrow, January 29th at 3 p.m. at the Bismarck Public Works Building. We'll provide information to stakeholders and receive comments from the public. In conjunction with these updates to the Industrial Pretreatment Ordinance, the Utility Enforcement Response Plan is being revised and is provided in the packet as well. With that, I can take any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Paul? Go ahead, Commissioner Zenker.
I just, Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, Paul, thanks for that introduction. Just want to make a shout out, a thank you to the Chamber EDC, Bismarck Manhattan Chamber EDC. We had a pre-meeting, so to speak, with some specific stakeholders, and they did the reach out for us. Unfortunately, not everybody could make it, but we had a turnout and talked about a few things and the understanding as to why this change is taking place. I think it's very important for us to understand that these are EPA changes that are coming down. And as Paul alluded to, it's basically, there's so many changes to 11.1, we got to take the whole thing out and put a new one in, so to speak, almost like changing a battery in a car. It's just time to upgrade. So I do want to thank them for helping us coordinate that, and then hopefully who's ever listening online or throughout gets the notification that we have a attendance at the public hearing tomorrow, or the public informational meeting tomorrow. So thanks again, Paul.
Okay, and I believe that's it, right? This is just a call for the hearing? Yeah, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve that we call for a public hearing as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Paul, can you clarify what date that's going to be? Is it at our next commission meeting?
We
I thought it
recommend
was.
approval for the commission meeting on February 25th.
Okay, all right.
The 30-day public comment period
That's
opened
what we
on
had?
the
Okay.
24th, so.
Perfect. I couldn't remember, so thank you. I appreciate that.
2 meetings?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, there's a motion and a second. Go ahead and call roll.
Mayor Schmitz?
Yes.
Commissioner Risch?
Yes.
Commissioner Zenker?
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly?
Yes.
Chair Cleary?
Yes. All right, L, consider the request to receive a legislative update and provide direction to staff. Jason.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Commissioners, Madam Chair, Mayor online. Prior to the meeting tonight, I put some papers in front of you at your workstations. This is up to today's date, current, with a variety of legislative bills. Those that are highlighted in yellow are new to this version. Those that are just in regular text are the ones that you had seen previously. So maybe I'll just spend a little bit of time touching on some of the new ones and noting the position that our partners at the North Dakota League of Cities has taken. And if the commission aligns or has consensus with the position the league has taken, I would like some affirmation of that. If the commission would prefer a different direction from staff, I would appreciate that direction as well. I'll just start with the House bills. I also should note, as of this week, there are no new bills on the House or the Senate side, so we should have everything that is in front of us, at least unless there's an emergency or some type of a clause that would allow something new to come back. Let me just start with the newest one on the list that wasn't here 2 weeks ago is House Bill 1306. The League of Cities position on this one is in opposition. This is directly relating to open records requests. Our office generally receives, we're the starting point for a lot of these types of requests. The concern isn't with transparency or access to information. The concern lies with the bill would include a provision that each citizen would be entitled to one free records request per year that would take up to 40 hours to produce. Commissioners, that is a lot of time for an open records request, and to have every citizen with the ability or the right to request 40 hours of records without any fee. Staff does not make any money covering these fees. We're allowed to charge $25 per hour based on Century Code for every hour beyond the first hour, and there's a second hour that is exempt from fees when it comes to redacting. So essentially, citizens currently get 2 hours of time for free, and anything beyond that, we would charge $25 an hour. This would significantly increase the amount of free time that would be invested by our staff to produce these types of records. So if that were to go forward, certainly we would adapt, but it would significantly impact the other work that staff is doing in certain situations. Next one on the list, House Bill 1307. This was regarding home rule cities and counties. Primary change here would aim to create a greater level of clarity by establishing that local ordinances cannot override state law, thus preserving state legislative authority while still allowing counties and cities to develop home rule charters that govern their local affairs within the bounds of state law. Essentially, if I'm reading this correctly, and this is strong opposition from the North Dakota League of Cities, this would effectively negate a city's ability to have home rule charter and defers exclusively to state law. Introduced and first reading was referred to Political Subdivisions Committee on that one. House Bill 1353, this would be a new bill specifically putting caps on annual property tax increases at the rate of the Consumer Price Index, not to exceed 3%. Effectively, this would restrict how much local governments can increase their local property tax collections each year. This one is different than 1176, which we talked about last time. That also has a 3% cap on it. This one is different again because taxing districts can carry forward unused increases for up to 3 years and can exceed the cap with approval from 60% of voters in a primary or general election. This was just heard yesterday by the Taxation Committee. I have not seen the final action or recommendation on that one. This is one of the multitude of potential property tax bills that are out there. The League of Cities' position on this one is to monitor. I believe that's a good position, at least until we get to crossover, when we see which bills came out of committee with various support. Next one on the list, House Bill 1382. This one would change the gas tax collection and increase it by 3 cents for fuel tax. This would obviously be something that would be very interesting for our Public Works Service Operations Director, Mr. Steve Salwai. Currently, the fuel tax collections are at 23 cents, and I believe those have been in place for a couple of decades. The League of Cities' position on that one is to support. House Bill 1440. This is one that was brought to my attention by public health staff that is particularly interested in tobacco prevention and cessation. House Bill 1440, which has already passed the House with an 81-13 vote, would provide for the operation and taxation of a cigar lounge. So this one has been sent over to the Senate. The League of Cities' position on this one is monitor. Speaking on behalf of the staff for public health, with the primary role of preventing tobacco consumption, the request would be from staff to oppose this bill. House Bill 1482, this bill would modify municipal bond elections, clarifying that bond issues would now require a primary or general election vote with 60% of qualified voters approving. And the bill would also introduce a protest mechanism where property owners can challenge bond resolutions if protests are signed by property owners representing at least 5% of the municipality's total assessed property value. The League's position on this one is oppose. From a staff perspective, this would add some time to projects, and this could add some uncertainty to projects as well. Effectively, we would be taking a good number of projects to the voters on a regular basis to decide if they are in support of issuing municipal bonds or not. That would be House Bill 1482. House Bill 1559 would introduce new limitations on taxable value of residential property that can be assessed in North Dakota. Specifically, the bill caps taxable valuation of residential property as its base year valuation, which is defined as the average taxable value over the previous 3 years. Again, another property tax bill that's part of the group. The position on this one that I would recommend would be to monitor, to continue to watch it as it works its way through the House to see what kind of changes would be proposed. Just 3 more House bills. 1560, this bill would create a property tax reduction program for long-term property owners, long-term homeowners. And I believe the long-term definition in this case would be 35 years. And it would specifically provide a 100% taxable valuation reduction up to $18,000 for homeowners who have lived in their primary residence. Excuse me, I misspoke. It's 30 years, not 35. Again, another one to monitor. House Bill 1570, this bill proposes significant changes to tobacco and nicotine production taxation. House Bill 1570, and then when we jump to the Senate side, Senate Bill 2281, both of them have similar objectives. They are increasing the tax collected on tobacco products. Again, referring back to our tobacco cessation and prevention specialist from Public Health, her preference would be to monitor both of these bills. Obviously, one may have stronger merits over another, but both of the bills are intended to, again, increase the sales tax collections that would be associated with tobacco. And then finally, House Bill 1613, this bill would establish new restrictions on how law enforcement in North Dakota can use drones. Obviously, this organization has made a very intentional investment in drones to support law enforcement activities. The Police Chiefs Association is obviously monitoring these bills along with many, many others that are influencing law enforcement. The League's position on this one in particular is monitor. I guess as the gentleman in front of you tonight representing this organization that, again, just has made very intentional investments in drone technology to enhance our law enforcement, I would suggest that our position on House Bill 1613 would be to oppose and support the law enforcement officers and allow them to continue to do their jobs as we have encouraged them to do.
Madam Chair, I would concur with that we would oppose that bill because the investment that we have, and we know what drones can do, and we know what safety the drones provide our police. So, I mean, we can still monitor it or whatever, but when it comes time, and if we need to have a communications with legislators or whatever, I would agree that we would oppose that.
Commissioners, if I may, sorry to interrupt, Madam Chair. At this time, as I looked this morning, I did not see any hearings scheduled on this particular bill, but we will definitely keep an eye on this one.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Zenker. I don't know if you want consensus on that, but I think with how much our police force has learned and invested into drones that we kind of know the benefits of them and have really tried to embrace that, so I would agree. Commissioner.
Madam Chair, I've got several of them. First of all, I'd like to, that we support the League of Cities on all of these things except for several of them. 1353, I think we should oppose it because that's not just a 3% cap. It's got a 60% approval rating from voters and a bunch of other things. I see the League of Cities is monitoring that, but I think that's one we should oppose. 1440, the cigar one, we should oppose that one as well. And then 1560, this idea that if you lived in your house for more than 30 years, you should not have to pay property taxes. I've been in my house for 36 years, and I'm in a position to pay my property tax. I don't believe I should have any special consideration over some young couple that'll have a much more difficult time paying their property taxes than I would. And then 1613, the drone one, we should certainly oppose that. And the last one I'd like to add, we haven't taken a position on, is 1176, and that's the big one. That's the big property tax bill, and the League of Cities and our city so far has not taken any position on it. They're monitoring it. And I generally like to stick with the union. Let's stick with the League of Cities, our group we're in, and stick with them. But it seemed to be that particular bill is going all over the map. We've got the city of Fargo, the city of Minot, both passed resolutions opposing the cap, included in 3% cap, included in 1176. And then the mayor of Grand Forks came out in favor of 1176 because he thought the 3% cap was somewhat reasonable and something they could live with. It's really not a cap. I mean, it's not a hard, firm cap. It's a 3% annually that you have carryover. So you could increase the levy up to 3%, and then, or 2%, then the next year it could be up to 4%, and it could carry over up to 5 years. So I think it's something we could live with, a 3% cap, or what I'd call a loose lid, because we can actually carry it over. And we can actually go to the voters for approval to go beyond that 3%. So I would recommend that we support 1176 the way it is. I understand there's some of these smaller communities that would have a very difficult time. Maybe it's New Leipzig, Strasbourg, Amadon, whatever, and they don't have much of a tax base. They certainly don't have a sales tax base like we do. And I heard the Senate Majority Leader just the other day say that, well, we might have to deal with this instead of being a blanket 3%. Some of these other smaller communities might need some more leeway. And I'm not speaking for them, and they probably have a very valid argument. But I believe we could live with the 3% in Bismarck. We just have to figure out how to do it. We just had an additional half-cent sales tax passed last June. It'll bring in about $10 million. That's about a 13% increase in overall budget revenue. I understand that we can't use that wantonly. We have to use it for police, fire, transit, and capital improvements. But I think that certainly brings a lot more money into our fund. So I would move the various ones that I suggested we support or oppose, and additionally support 1176.
So I think we are in agreement that we are intend to oppose House Bill 1440, which is your drone one. And I guess I would agree with Commissioner Risch. I think on the tobacco one from a public health standpoint, and also just the fact that the city of Bismarck worked really hard to become a smoke-free community as a business owner. I think that you can weigh both sides of that coin, but there's plenty of business owners that are very happy to live in a smoke-free community. I don't think that, that becomes a sticking point. I think right now we have it noted that we would support with recommendations House Bill 1176. When we previously discussed it, I think it was just some concern that the individual communities weren't, we need to make sure that it works for everybody, that voices are being heard, that people are getting invited to that table when it comes to like changes they're gonna make. And then also, obviously, as we see in legislature from time to time, House Bill 1176 and House Bill 1353 are dealing with similar things but not saying the same thing, so the chances of both of them going through without major changes is huge.
Not likely.
Yeah, so, but for the most part, I do agree with you, Commissioner Risch, but I would, go ahead, Mayor.
My only comment, I don't have any problem with the general concept, is I think we would be, I'm supportive of 1176. I do think that consideration would be wonderful if they looked at the cap. I think a cap is appropriate, but my only concern is 3% isn't going to keep up with inflation, because historically inflation's over 3% on an annualized basis. So although we have some capacity, and the city of Bismarck probably has some flexibility to, support it, but if they were to come to us and say what would be a reasonable way or methodology of calculating the cap, I would love to be at the table.
The one other thing I wanted to mention, and I don't intend to steal your thunder, Jason, I don't know if it's on here, but House Bill 1552 is a fresh one. It's on your sticky note. And that is in reference to a cap on property tax being 3%. 1552 talks about a cap on sales tax. So if the conversation is we're okay with the property tax cap because our budget has some fluidity, I think we need to make sure that we're monitoring that one as well, because that changes the fluidity of some things. So that, I know that one is like brand new on the list, so it might not be.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, it's on my Post-it note list that was just added to today, and to expound on what you said, yes, it is a 3% cap on sales tax. Currently, City of Bismarck's at 2%, and so that would allow for essentially 1 more cent of sales tax. It also, in the bill, it also provides language if a sales tax is to sunset and you're already beyond your 3%, you cannot continue to exceed 3%, but if it does sunset, for example, we have the half-cent sales tax for arterial road construction. which is set to close in 2019. This commission could direct that to be reconsidered by the voters again, and that would be back onto that, 3% total cap. So,
But that only works in the city of Bismarck because we're not currently above the 3%. Like if that sunset, if that was putting us at 3.5%, we wouldn't be able to take it back to the voters.
Madam Chair, that is my understanding, yes. If we were currently at 3.5% and we had a sales tax that was set to sunset in 5 years, we could not go back to 3.5%. We would then be at 3% at that time.
Right. Commissioner Connolly?
On 1176, I agree with Commissioner Risch on a lot of cases. We talked about it 2 weeks ago in relation to the cap, that some sort of restriction has to be there, whether it's indexing, valuation, or a cap of some sort. It doesn't work in the citizens across the state. This is a top concern, and everybody knows it's on their radar. I think we should let it go through the motions some more. I don't think it should be like a formal vote like some of the other commissions have done. One of the things that was mentioned, like smaller communities and things, even with their, say, Slope County, their property tax base and things, the example being used is like a $1 million fire truck. Their property tax within their budget, I've been told, wouldn't even accommodate for, say, the fire truck example. So they're under creative financing either way. And that's where maybe the state looks at grants for some of those areas that are going to have some struggle meeting some of these changes as we grow through them. Not everything this is the only way something can be done. The legislature, hopefully they're doing things to accommodate some of those nuances that would be created through these changes.
So Commissioners, I heard a variety of things with 1176.
I would just monitor it and see what shakes out.
From my perspective, it's great to be a part of these conversations early on. I agree with the mayor that if there are discussions that we would, as staff, would be very much glad to be at that table to help inform those conversations. But really, for me, when the bills cross over to the other side, I think that there's more legitimacy to a lot of these things, and we are content to continue to monitor 1176 and come back with any changes or updates at this time. But I believe crossover will occur after the end of February. So first part of March, we'll be seeing every bill that's originated in the House will jump to the Senate and vice versa. To my understanding, the actions taken after once crossover, that's generally the final step before, if there's an approval, it's the final step before it gets to the governor's desk for signature.
Go ahead, Commissioner Rush.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, maybe we should allow you the discretion to represent us at 3% or higher in the negotiations. If it comes to that, if they ask your opinion when they're discussing these things, especially if it gets to the other side?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I do have some draft testimony that has been prepared for 1176 that has not seen the light of day. It has not seen this table, but it does address the 3%, and it offers suggestions that a consumer price index or some type of an index created by the Bank of North Dakota would be an appropriate measure to try and effectively balance this for the entire state. Again, it's a neutral testimony recognizing we're not opposed to caps, but let's talk about how this could work best for everybody going forward, because we fully realize as a larger city we have more opportunities than a small community would when it comes to adjusting to this type of a situation.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Smear, go ahead.
Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, Jason, I completely agree with you, Jason, that at the time for us to really act on some of these things and be more outspoken, I would think, is at crossover. Because there's some of these bills that are on this sheet that aren't going to make it out of the House or out of the Senate.
Right.
So to have an opinion on something that probably hasn't even had a hearing, it looks like on some of these, is just speculation. So if we're having conversations about speculation, the only thing we're wasting is our time and Jason's time. So I think let's just, before we say, rally the troops and get something done, let's see what happens at crossover. Because even at crossover, some of these bills are gonna get manipulated and changed and massaged, so to speak, and might have to go back to the House and vice versa. So I appreciate all the information, but whoa, Nelly.
Commissioner Zinker, thank you. I tend to agree with you. I mean, I think we just still need to wait and see what's coming. We don't want to necessarily take a position. Certainly, if something's, I don't think we're ready to take many positions at all yet, other than maybe the drone one.
Well, Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
if it's a really bad idea, sometimes it needs to be opposed right from the get-go, or it'll slip away on you.
I guess I would agree with Commissioner Risch on that standpoint. I think some of them are farther along than others too. So I definitely agree with Commissioner Zinker that a lot of them are going to be changed and manipulated, and that we can kind of see how they play out. I think the drone one was pretty simple for us to oppose. I do think seeing how quickly and strongly the tobacco bill went through the House, I think that it's appropriate that we oppose that one, because it's already been passed through the House and received by the Senate. But with regards to a lot of these, I agree. We can see how they play out. There's a lot of time left in session, so.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, if I may, one more bill that made it to my sticky note that didn't make it to your sheets is House Bill 1389. There is, for those of you that have a recollection of what this organization has been doing through the past legislative sessions, you'll remember we've invested a lot of time, energy, and discussion into an infrastructure utility fee, effectively a different means to help pay for street repairs and street improvement districts. To say it a completely different way, a means to get rid of special assessments. And this will be the third session, to my knowledge, that this particular bill has been considered. The last bill, there were some changes, the last session 2 years ago, there were some changes that compromised the public schools and the park district's ability to effectively collect to pay for special assessments. House Bill 1389, which is actually up for a hearing tomorrow morning at 9:30, would allow for infrastructure fees and effectively the street utility fee project. Given the amount of time and energy that this organization has put into this, I would look for your support in this particular bill, because this has really been an initiative that was primarily driven by the city of Bismarck. And this was one of the very first projects that former city administrator Keith Hunke and I started working on together when I joined the administration team in 2016. So here we are several years later, and we have one more opportunity currently to watch this bill make the right changes and hopefully support the parks and schools districts so they're able to consider this as a viable means for street improvement districts in the future.
Go ahead, Commissioner Zinker.
Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, Jason, yes, I agree that we should support that. And I would bet it's so new that it hasn't even made the radar of the League of Cities yet. So, yep, I agree.
Commissioner Conley.
Jason, who's this? Go ahead,
Go
Commissioner
first.
Conley.
Okay. Well, as somebody that sat in on, I believe, all of those meetings over the years, with that, I would agree, because at least it opens up the conversation so we can continue to have it. That's the art of representation of the citizen, is that it's not the final determination, but it opens up that window so we can have that conversation in these environments as we're trying to pay for things. And streets is certainly pretty high on the food chain on what we need to maintain.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, I guess what I'm hearing here is support for House Bill 1389 and direction to participate in this testimony tomorrow. I guess what I would prefer to do, rather than take a position and jump into this right away. Just be there as a means to provide support and an explanation of how we got to this point starting in 2016. And since he did such a fantastic job presenting on House Bill 1020, I'm going to drag the city engineer along with me because he's been a partner in this street utility project from the very beginning. So I think it would be another good opportunity for Mr. Shell to get in front of a group of friendly faces and talk about all the good stuff we do here. He is above average.
I do
Yes,
think
we're
it's
glad to have him.
good to go into that with the intention of helping and hoping to answer their questions, because I think that when I watch those committees, I feel like there's questions that are asked that realistically the municipalities, people like you and Gabe are going to be the best at answering. So I think that there's a lot of value in that. So anything else for us, Jason?
Can I jump to the Senate side? I've got
Yes, you
about 6
can.
more bills on that side to bring to your attention as well, starting with Senate Bill 2180. This is regarding public meetings with the intention of supporting public participation rights. Specifically, the bill would add a new requirement that all public entity meetings must include an opportunity for individuals to provide public comments. Much like this group does at every meeting, it's on the agenda. League of Cities has a position to monitor. I don't know that we have any reason to oppose something like that. I think it demonstrates transparency, just bringing it to your attention. Senate Bill 2208, this bill would introduce a new provision that disqualifies cities or counties from receiving grants if they adopt ordinances that interfere with state-approved energy infrastructure projects. Here, Commissioners, I don't care to speculate where the impetus for this bill came from. I do want to share, though, that the League of Cities posted a position of oppose on this one. It's been introduced. No hearing has been scheduled to my knowledge.
Did you have a comment, Commissioner Connolly?
I would endorse on this one to strongly oppose. We shouldn't be picking winners and losers as we represent the citizens, and I believe this one does.
I think we need to monitor it still. I mean, I don't know what the legs are on it.
I would concur that we should monitor it.
Sounds good. Yeah, it looks like it's just been introduced, so.
Yep. Senate Bill 2225. This bill would provide a $50 million appropriation from the Strategic Investment and Improvements Fund to the North Dakota Department of Commerce for a Housing Opportunity, Mobility, and Empowerment Grant Program. This is the HOME program. We participate in the HOME program currently. This would be a set-aside of $15 million for communities over 20,000 people, and communities over 20,000 can receive a maximum grant of up to $1.5 million. And then the department would ensure that matching funds and a secured dollar-for-dollar basis would be available through political subs. League of Cities, of course, is supporting this. This is part of the housing initiative that has come from the work that was done last summer as part of Governor Burgum's efforts to address affordable and attainable housing in North Dakota. House Bill 2254 would provide a $15 million appropriation from the state's general fund to the North Dakota Department of Transportation. This would be specifically for grants to fixed route city transportation providers during the 2022 to 2025 biennium. That would be our fixed route transit system. Support is the League of Cities' position on that one. Senate Bill 2281, the League's position is to monitor. This bill would update North Dakota's tobacco tax laws. I had mentioned this earlier. This would be an additional sales tax on tobacco purchases. And then the last one that I have on my list is Senate Bill 2306. Again, this is in line with getting people back in the workforce. This would create a child care workforce recruitment and retention program in North Dakota that would be designed to address child care workforce shortages by providing monthly incentive payments to licensed early childhood service providers. Maybe not a direct influence to the operations of the city of Bismarck, but certainly having adequate and reliable child care is a key to having a strong workforce and having people enter that workforce. And we are, as you all know, generally hiring for a variety of positions throughout the organization. And so the league's position on that one is support. I would recommend we just keep our eyes on that one to make sure that it doesn't get hung out to dry in another way. But I think that's a nice effort on the state's part to recognize some of the challenges that all of us are facing when it comes to workforce, individuals in the workforce itself. So any specific direction on any of the Senate bills that we didn't cover? Or are there any bills that you're aware of that I have omitted or failed to include on our list? I'd be happy to add those if there are any suggestions. I'm not seeing anything.
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Jason. All right, since we pulled M, we are on to other business. Is there any other business tonight, Commissioner?
Well, I just want to give out a shout out to our public employees. I attend Trinity Lutheran Church, and Pastor Mark Nurum asked me to thank the police department and the fire department for some excellent work they did. We had someone get into our youth room and was destroying it with a fire extinguisher and beating up the youth room. Pastor Nurum called the 911, the police and the fire department both showed up, and completely professional jobs. They cleared the buildings, and he said to pass on his appreciation and our church's appreciation. Plus, we had a situation with embezzlement, which is always a bad deal, and the police department helped out tremendously with that. And then I was up at the legislature, and I'm visiting with a guy unrelated to city business, a different bill altogether. And I just said to him, I said, I'm a city commissioner. Do you have any concerns? And he wrote me a note the next day. He's a retired guy named Bill Jensen, who used to be with the Game and Fish Department. He said, Bill Jensen here. We met yesterday at the Capitol during lunch. You mentioned that you were a city commission and asked if I had any concerns. I had no concerns yesterday, nor do I today, but wanted to ask you to please relate a message to all the city employees that they are appreciated, particularly the ones that work outside during the winter, keeping our streets clean, water running, collecting our garbage, and trimming trees. I used to have jobs as a janitor and maintenance worker. At times, I remember feeling unappreciated and invisible to the public. Please let them know that their good works are seen, valued, and appreciated, particularly on days like today. Best of all the best, Bill Jensen. I just concur with him, and I thought that was such a kind, thoughtful note. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Any other business, Commissioner Connolly?
We found a date for the first public transportation working group. That meeting will occur on February 25th at noon at Public Works.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, meeting is adjourned.